What's up, Dojo family? I'm here with my dear friend Garrain, who, man, we've been bopping in and out of each other's reality
Ooh,
and
ooh,
for
ooh, ooh.
many, many years now. And we were just joking about, how we see each other and we connect, and we've always had this really beautiful resonance with one another. And we're always around like 50 other people. And so we haven't really had the opportunity to go all the way in together in our recent chapter. We had a couple phone calls in our earlier days of meeting, but we hadn't like really dropped in at the leading edge of who we've become now today. So, what better place to do that than here on the Dojo podcast and invite you all into that conversation as we really also welcome Garrain into the Dojo field, which is really built on the singular intention to identify where our leading edge lives and embody the version of ourselves that lives on the other side. Recognizing we spoke a little bit about this idea of the human 2.0, and we're going to get into what that even means. But each one of us always channeling infinite consciousness through our finite human form have a leading edge. We have a place in our lives that we're being invited forward. We're being invited to expand. And the nature of an edge is often that there's something on the other side of it that is unknown, that we've yet to experience, that we've yet to feel, something that we might be afraid of, and where life continues to call us forward into the places that we are not, so that we can grow and expand and experience more of what it looks like to live into our design. And so I'm excited to explore what that looks like for you, Garrain, today. And I'd just love to invite you to share your voice and share your deepest why for being here today when we first tuned in together.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on, and thank you for being brave enough to, with strength, put out the frequency of vulnerability and exposing yourself for creating something like this, so that stories like mine have wings. So I just want to acknowledge you and honor you in that space.
Mm.
My deepest why for being here is to be a bridge uh, between the worlds that people are just constantly seeking. I know a bunch of spiritual people who are broke. They can't seem to figure out business. And I know a bunch of business people who are spiritually broken. And I'm a hybrid. I'm like the hybrid entrepreneur that sits between both worlds. And I know there's a resonant conversation. And I know that today, by showing as an example that you can oscillate between both worlds and then coagulate those worlds into one world, it can create something really extraordinary. So I'm just, my deepest why is to be an example of a different perspective to look at your life at, and a different approach that could potentially produce extraordinary results in every single area.
Mm. Thank you. And I really see the integrity with which you walk in both of those categories that you're naming, from, the side of spirituality and your direct channel and witnessing you in that channel state, and where you get plugged in, whether you're using your voice to sing or using your voice to channel or using your voice to just emit genuine kindness. That's been a constant I've witnessed in you. And then the flip side of it, really cracking the money code and how to generate resources and steward resources in a way that is reciprocal and supportive for both yourself and everyone around you. That takes a journey. And I actually would love to hear a little bit about what made you you. So can you give us, for anyone who's just getting to feel you for the first time on this episode, I know that when we serve up the medicine that we had to learn first.
Yeah.
Anyone doing that, is with integrity, is doing it from that place. So tell me about the times that you were disconnected spiritually and totally broke, and what it took for you to kind of break in. Like, what did it look like for you to break into your financial freedom? And
Yeah.
what did it look like for you to break free from the distortion of disconnection into the truth of spiritual freedom? Which, to me, being spiritual, that's such a it's like it's such a cookie cutter language. Like, are you spiritual? Like, what does that even mean to be spiritual? Like, right. And so tell me your either whichever direction you want to go with it, from what did your awakening into more connection to spirit look like? And what was it when you were not? Or on the side of finances and money, like what's the opposite of
Yeah.
where you are now?
I will share with you. I have several stories, and I love to train through stories. But my mom was one of the greatest mentors back when I was a kid, when I was totally unaware, and one of the greatest mentors now, but not like your typical Tony Robbins type mentor. I learned from what she did, and I learned from what she didn't do, and I learned from the things that I didn't like, and I learned from the things that I really loved, and I learned from the things that when I connected the dots going backwards, looking at my life, I'm like, oh shit, my mom's a fucking G. So I'll speak through four different dimensions of my mom. The
What's her
most
name?
Garrain Jones.
Sharian. Okay, let's call him in. Sharian.
Yeah. So
Sharian
I was,
codes.
yeah. So I was born in a household where anytime I would ask my mom for something that was expensive to her, she'd be like, I can't afford that. We ain't got no money.
Mm,
Whenever you can make your own money, you can buy whatever you want.
yeah.
So let's bookmark that. We don't have any money. We don't have any money. We can't afford it. And you keep sharing those that language, which is, if you know how ABCs works, ABCs over and over and over evolves into words, sentences, paragraphs, books, essays, encyclopedias. So now the ABCs of a worthiness conversation, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. We ain't got no money. And that's ABCs. And adults are deteriorated children. So when you're not even aware of the things that made you who you are today, and that's just a running program in the background of your mind, and you're just hearing over and over and over, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. It's in the same resonant frequency. So that was a running program my entire life until I hit 33. That's story number one. Story number two was, even though my mom said we can't afford it, and whenever I would ask her for something that I really needed, clothes on my back, new schools for new shoes for school, something that I really needed, I would watch her say, I can't do it right now. And then she would always figure out a way.
Mm,
Always. I mean, I don't, whatever she, never underestimate the power of a mom who is willing to go anywhere and everywhere to provide for her kids.
yeah.
That's a power that's beyond, I'm a powerful divine specimen. And my mom, in her power,
Hmm.
that's willing to do whatever it takes for her kids, is a whole different kind of power.
Yeah.
I watched my mom do whatever it takes in the most extreme circumstances and always figure out a way to make it happen.
Mm,
So that is story number two. Story number three is when my mom said, whenever you can afford it, you can make your own money, you can buy whatever you want.
yeah.
So what I did as a 5-year-old is I created a lemonade stand. My mom said you would go from door to door, knocking on people's doors, asking if you can wash their car. If they said no, you say, can you wash their lawn? And if they said no, she was like, you would never take no for an answer.
Mm,
But it wasn't about the no. It was that I wanted the pair of Jordans and I was willing to do whatever it took to get what I wanted, because what was domesticated from my mom was she was going to get it even if she didn't have the money at the time.
yeah.
So those stories are oscillating. Now, story number 4, my brother Anthony. I started puberty when I was 18, so I was very small for a very long time. My brother started puberty when he was 9.
Wow.
And we used to wrestle every single day. So imagine 150-pound man child laying on a little boy and saying, get up while we were wrestling. So I had to face a mountain every single day, get up, and I had to find a way to get up, find a way to get up, find a way to get up, find a way to get up. Now,
Mm.
inside of always finding a way to figure it out, I'm broke, I'm broke, I'm broke, I'm broke, I can't afford it. Finding a way to get up
Mhm.
and becoming an entrepreneur because someone said whenever you can make your own money, you can make what you can have whatever you want. I developed the skills early on when I was 5 that most people never develop in their lifetime because they're afraid of rejection.
Mhm.
So those 4 stories became the backbone of little hustling ass Garrain from back in the day that would sell baseball cards, bubble gum, garage sale shoes, buy it, resell it, repackage it. That was always a part of my nature.
Mhm.
So now imagine I'm doing this my whole life.
Mhm.
Only code I needed to crack was I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Mhm.
So now, as we come into closing, fast forward to 32, and I'm about to be 44 next month. So when I was 32, somebody introduced me to a self-development seminar for the first time in my life, and I'm hearing all these things about leaders are readers, successful people are willing to do the things that unsuccessful people won't do, and I stopped in that moment looking at what I thought was unsuccessful people and then looking at what I thought was successful people, what they were reading, how they treated people when they were around, when they weren't around, how they acknowledged people, how they served without expecting anything in return. And I started noticing the beats in between the notes. And then I started to copy that. When I copied that, I broke the code to the abundance frequency, but I already had the skill set of entrepreneurship, being able to grow through my nose until I earned my powerful yes, and being always finding a way to make it happen.
Mhm. Super powerful. What do you think it was in you that was this innate ability to not fear rejection? Because I feel like that's one human primal, that is like, don't put me out for the saber-toothed tiger. I'll do what it takes to be in the circle. And you named like, I just wasn't, I had to permeate the fear of rejection. And it sounds like you were doing that from a very early age. And so I'm curious, like, was that, I mean, I feel like it's actually innate to fear rejection. So,
Yeah.
what did you do to reverse engineer that in the earlier stages? And did that just stick, or did you go through waves connected to that piece as you got?
I have one story that I'll share with you. When I first came to LA, I wanted somebody challenged me to be a model, fashion model. I was 5'9". The going rate for male models was 6'1". And because they were condescending when they said it to me, I was like, well, I'll show you. I'll be a model and I'm going to be a top model. And they were laughing. So I wrote down every single agency that was in Los Angeles. Clear, Click, Q, Wilhelmina, Ford. I mean, Major, all these different agencies. I put the easiest ones first and the most difficult ones last. When I had my ego, I was like, of course I'll get in this one. And they rejected me. They were like, we already have somebody that looks like you. And during that time in 2001, there wasn't that many black models on the wall. You had the one light skinned guy, one dark skin with the green eyes, one light skinned girl, one dark skinned African girl with the chiseled jawbones. It was like one and one, literally on every single agency. Okay. Now it's way more diverse, but back in 2001, it wasn't. They already had someone that looked like me damn near on every single wall. And over the next 3 days, I got rejected by 11 agencies. But
Mhm.
every time I wanted to quit, a voice inside said, Garrain, you've come this far, keep moving forward. And I don't, that is just what I just listened because
Yeah.
I didn't have a car. I was going through bus rides and everything. And I'm just, man, okay, yep. They look at me for 5 minutes. We already have somebody that looks like you. I'm like, fuck,
Mm.
you didn't even look at my pictures. So I go through 3 days of this. And then the last day, I'm at Wilhelmina, and there's maybe 75 guys in there. All of them were taller than me. All of them had better bodies than me. All of them, to my eyes, looked better than me. And I kept saying, well, I don't look like any of these models. So here I am in my 11th rejection. I'm like, I might as well just get it over with.
Mhm.
And so when I was focused on rejection, I kept getting rejected. And I remember right before they were about to call my name, I said, you know what? I know I don't have the abs, and I know I don't have the portfolio like everyone else. And I know I don't look like any of these models. But listen, this is just me. And if you can't accept me for me, but then it's not meant to be. And I
Mm.
remember walking in and I saw this little bitty gay dude, David Todd, and he was like, hmm, hmm. And in my head, I'm like, this is already longer than they gave everybody else because they were looking at him for like 5 minutes. He goes back, brings back three other agents. They took a Polaroid, my little bird chest, and they said, in my head, I was like, I don't look like any of these models. You know what he said? We'd love to represent you. You don't look like any of our other models.
Mm.
And I was like, and
Ah,
it was that moment
yeah.
that dropped a seed in me.
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't rejection. Maybe this is the process that grows me into the kind of person that can sustain at the level that I'm actually trying to go to.
Hmm.
So I grew through the process
Yeah.
to earn my powerful yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I no longer see a no. I see the process.
Hmm.
And when it's my turn, I will have developed and shaped and molded, and I become the kind of person that doesn't pop and drop. I become the kind of person that can actually sustain at any level that I call into my life.
Hmm. That's the I do what it takes energy. I can feel these pieces of you that you described that were cultivated in your youth operating all the way through your life. And I find like, man, the experiences we have that are the toughest and the hardest give us our bite. They give us our drive. It's like sitting on a like a lazy boy chair. You're probably not going to get up, but if you sit down and there's a thumbtack, it's like boom, it gives you this drive to get up and move. And so I really feel that the resilience that was cultivated through all the years, growing up that were challenging, and those dismantling of the misbelief structures. And there's also just a willingness that you're bringing to keep feeling the thing that you didn't want to feel, and then almost like rewrite the story in your own mind. Because it's wild. Like the thing that was the reason why you weren't getting selected, like, man, I don't look like any of these other models. You're saying that in your head. And then out of his mouth comes, as soon as you were like willing to feel the feeling of rejection, like, man, like if they reject me, it's fine. Like you had permeated it enough that it wasn't jarring you anymore. It's like doing lift. It reminds me of doing lifts in the gym. Like you went to
Yeah.
however many agencies, like 10 agencies, and got rejected 10 times. And by the 10th time, it's almost like you popped, where there was no more. It was like, I don't know if it was reducing in the pain, the feeling of rejection, but maybe you were getting more resilient or more used to it or more willing to feel it. And then by the time the pop happened, it was just like, reject me or don't reject me. I know that I'm good regardless. I know
And,
that I'm good regardless.
and something I want to add to that, to just add to more practicality.
Yeah.
According to your dream, prayer, wish, desire, unlocks the equal of its resistance
Mm-hmm.
that has been sent to test you to see if what you want is what you really want.
Mm-hmm.
And just like a video game, if you lose to the dragon at the end of the round, you stay on the same level. You beat the dragon, you go to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when people say, I want to be successful, I want to be in a committed relationship, then all of a sudden these random thoughts start coming in, and then you start being insecure with yourself. And all of a sudden you don't be seen in a relationship where you don't see yourself, which makes sense because you're a mirror. all of that becomes the resistance.
Mhm.
That is your training partner so that you can develop into the kind of person that can sustain the thing that you actually want or get swallowed by it.
Yeah.
So right now, everybody out there has something where it's like, man, it's just like, it's not happening in the time that I want. So maybe your test is patience, not doing patience, but who you become when patience becomes a part of you. In the space of the infinite, everything becomes available. So inside of the frequency of patience, guess what happens? The thing shows up that you are so working really hard for.
Hmm.
So yeah, go ahead.
Well, how do you know the difference in your own life or in the lives of your clients as you see when you're going for something, an intention, a goal, whether it's in your career or, a long-term relationship, and you're meeting a lot of resistance, let's say, on the way. And I agree. And sometimes you're calling in the exact resistance you need to expand beyond it. And then that gives you the muscle required to sustain the new level of being, service, relationship, whatever it is. And other times life is bringing in signaling that's saying you're out of alignment. This is like resistance. That's a redirection. It's almost like a karmic correction. How do you know the difference when someone, yourself or someone you work with, is white knuckling their way towards something? Like there's an attachment to an outcome that we decide on a human level should happen. And life is kind of saying, you've gone as far as you needed to go. You've received the training, A plus, like now let go. It's a new direction. And there's just this, no, it has to happen this way. How do you know when it's actually a redirection or when it's like, no, keep going and this is your test?
So one, I don't enter in something being attached to that, being attached to the outcome. I'm
Mhm.
committed to the process, but
Mhm.
unattached to the outcome because the outcome can be 10 times greater than you as a human
Right.
can create and have specific big time results that mirror that exact thing. So in the way I look at life, say for instance you want me to train. I've run 64 miles over a mountain. You want me to train you for a marathon, 26.2 miles, but you've never run a marathon before. I'm going to ask you, do you just want to walk across? Do you just want to finish? Do you want to complete in the top 50? Do you want top 25, top 10, top 5, top 1, or world record? Depending on your specificities on how you want to complete the race, that determines the training I give you. Sometimes I'm going to give you a training that may seem like, why am I learning this when all I want to do is run? So in the way I look at life, everything after I open my mouth and I say, I want to be in a committed relationship, boom. Everything that comes in there that causes the resistance is like you're passing levels, because it's not the white knuckling. What it is anytime I overcome anything, I become a different person. So that would be like saying, "Oh man, I was white knuckling this when I was smuggling drugs into from one country to the next. The next thing you know, I'm serving a 12-year sentence in a French prison, and that could seem in the beginning like it was off key.
Mm.
But then when you look at the nectar of my life and see how much range I have and the grit that I have and the resilience that I have and the embodied patience. I'm probably one of the most patient people on the planet because I had to, because all the people that I wrote, all 150 people while I was in prison, 5 people wrote me back. So I learned how to love myself. I learned how to save myself while I was in prison,
Mm.
lockdown, or having things that I gave power to stripped away from me so that I could remember where the power began to begin with, so that I could be still for long enough. So I could say that that was off key, but everything I learned while I was in prison, I learned to speak Braille. I learned to speak fluent French. I stopped using my dominant hand and used my non-dominant hand, which operated a different part of my brain. Every single thing that I learned just like a martial arts belt, translate to the work that I do now. So I believe all of it was a part, even if it felt like it was off key, it was on key
Yeah.
for the bigger shaping of what I'm here to do.
Well said. Yeah. I mean, with the example, that's a really powerful example with prison, right? Because you could say, well, I was, completely out of alignment, right? And so that's what landed me in prison. But there's the energy that was being followed there, the out of alignment energy, what you learned in prison, the versatility, the patience, the devotion, all of it, that was needing to be forged in a deeper way that happened through that redirection. And the way that you were able to come out and recreate your life. How long were you in prison? I don't even know the full spectrum of that story, but how long were you there? And I mean, I can imagine that's a lot of people's like scary, one of their scariest, worst nightmares. So what, can you go a little deeper into what that was like? And what was the moment that you were like, I'm deciding to make gold out of this?
I was in prison for 2.5 years, and I just had a new baby. My daughter now is 21, about to graduate from NYU. Shout out to Kylia. Um,
Oh,
so I was in there for 2.5 years,
wow.
serving a 12-year sentence
My
at
goodness.
the height of my acting and modeling career. I'm on billboards, I'm in magazines, and
Wow.
next thing you know, the most anti-drug person, still to this day, never had a sip of alcohol,
Mhm.
in jail
Mm,
for smuggling 6.2 kilos of heroin from one country to the next.
mm,
So here I am thinking, man, oh my God, what I was so stupid. Why didn't I think of this? Why did this? About 2 months, 2 years and 3 months in, we were allowed to watch. We were allowed to watch movies once a month. Shawshank Redemption came on, which is a movie that's based out of prison. And Anthony Dufresne, he says, man, they can take anything they want away from me, but they can't take away my mind. And instantly, I had the biggest epiphany of my life. I knew why I was in prison, because when I was free, I used to say, I'm so far away from where I'm supposed to be. I feel like I'm in prison inside of my own body. And I literally manifested being in another country in prison. And I said in that same breath, if I can think myself in prison, well, then I can think myself free. What would a free person do? What would a free man do? And a voice inside said, Garrain, everything you used to love to do when you were a kid. What did I used to love to do? Used to love to run, used to love to draw, used to love to motivate people, used to love to sing. So guess what I started doing? I started singing, and I was already feeling this, what I now know is my essence of freedom. I started feeling free. And an inmate goes, every time you sing, it makes me feel free. And I just kept doing it.
yeah.
I started drawing portraits of other people's families, and they were crying. I was like, man, this makes me feel so good. And then all of a sudden, I'm just motivating people. I learned to speak fluent French, so I'm speaking in fluent French, motivation. And I was just like, man, they just get a kick out of this. I love this.
Yeah.
The voice inside says, Garrain, run. You love to run. And I'm like, but there's nobody running. In the morning, we walk around in the yard for 1 hour, 2 hours in the afternoon. I saw fights, drug deals, people stabbing each other. And a voice goes, run, nobody running. So I started running. 30 days, 60 something inmates was running with me, less fights, less drug deals, less people stabbing each other. Now I'm unaware spiritually of what's happening while I'm tapped all the way into little Garrain.
Yeah.
In losing my freedom, and I need y'all to really listen to this, you cannot fight for something only you can give to yourself. In losing my freedom, I discovered my freedom. I was more free in prison than I'd ever been in my life, because I was doing everything that I used to love to do as a child that made me feel the most free. There was something overflowing from me. There was a vibrational energy, this frequency that I couldn't even name at that time. This is as I connect the dots looking backwards. They already tested the drugs, and I'm going to close this out. 3 times, 6.2 kilos of heroin. And then when I feel free, interesting, they called me in the office and they said, Jones, we retested the drugs for the amount, it was 90% was fake. And for the amount that was real, you've already done the time. You're free to go home.
Wow.
That right there. When I became aware, I went back. They say, leave the past in the past. Not if you didn't get the lesson, because your future will become a recreation of your past. I went back. What did I learn? What is this? How did I feel? And I extracted all of the lessons. And once you get the lesson, then you get the blessing. I was like, oh, teach people how to embody the essence of freedom.
Mm.
And the universe becomes plastic, and man and human doesn't have the final say so. In this ethereal world, it is who you're embodying, your full self, and your life will match.
Damn. I got chills so many times in that story that you're sharing, that is profound and powerful and really speaks to who you are. And that brings me to the other side of the question we started with, which is the catalyst for what you would consider to be your awakening into connection with spirit.
Yeah,
And what does you being conscious or being spiritual, right? We said that's such like a blanket statement, but like, what does
yeah,
that mean? And you're definitely sprinkling into it already through this story. We went through like the money codes in the first half, and now I'm definitely feeling like these major life catalysts of like, what is happening? How did I get myself like that? They become these tunnels and these gateways into more freedom. And as now I'm 37 years old, I feel like I just am getting enough years around the spiral to really, really track patterns in ways that, you know, allow me to appreciate age, the wisdom that comes with age, and seeing where those cycles happen, where the really big pops happen. And yet they come, there's still big catalysts that invite us forward. And I feel like it really is this Fibonacci spiral where we see similar patterns and then we spiral around, but from a higher level of awareness, where I'm like, I can feel similar sensations from the past, but I have more of my own awareness wrapped around. It's the perspective of some age, which will continue to grow over time, obviously, but the perspective really creates breath for me, and the ability to have perspective and bring awareness to situations, circumstance that we may not have had before, that awareness is forged through experiences like the one that you just described. For me, it's experiences like the one you just described that forge the awareness and perspective for me creates a feeling of connection. When I'm holding the occurrences of my life with awareness and perspective, I feel connected to something more than is what is just like the physical three-dimensional reality of my moment. And when I feel that, I feel like I'm being held by the force of life, by something greater, by a higher intelligence that has been moving the whole thing along in the direction that it needs to all the way. And so I'm curious for you, like, was there a turning point? Is it a series of turning points? Where's the anchor for you where you're bridging, right, money codes and spirituality, right, consciousness and earth, essentially earth energy? Where's the bridge for you where you moved into an awareness and a perspective that's greater than what was sitting right in front of you? Was it the experience in prison, or is it more than that?
no, because I wasn't aware of what happened in prison. So I had a
Mm,
lot of ups and downs where a lot of really great things happened. And then it was like, how did you do this in modeling? And how did you do this in
yeah,
music? How did you
yeah,
do? I just wasn't aware, and you can't change what you're not aware of.
that's right.
When I started going to personal development seminars and reading books, and I stopped listening to music, and I stopped watching TV, and I stopped going to the nightclubs chasing women because my life was a direct flip. I just, I literally started doing the opposite of everything that that I wouldn't do in areas of my life where I wasn't happy.
Yeah,
And so I trained myself to start doing the opposite. And I'd say the defining moment for me where everything shifted, um, It was 2011 at 3:43 in the morning.
Oh, 3:43 in the morning in
Yeah,
30 seconds.
3:43 in the morning.
Damn.
I'll never forget.
Uh-huh.
2011, and I cried and I cursed and I screamed, and it was like I'm over $200,000 in debt at this time. I tried to take my life twice. My girlfriend had just broken up with me because I couldn't get my life together. My daughter pretty much disowned me because how can you give love from a tank where you don't love yourself? Plus, I'm living in my car. Plus, my mom is dying in the hospital with 12 back-to-back surgeries, a
My
colostomy bag, 9 different medications. So it was the rock bottom of the rock bottom for me. And I'm aware that not everybody has the same rock bottom, but you have your own thread of rock bottom.
for sure.
That's when, instead of saying, why does this keep happening to me? Why does this, can it get any worse? It's the first time in my life I yelled and I said, okay, I'm tired of fighting. I don't want to fight anymore. I want to be healthy. I want to be happy. I want to be surrounded by nothing but positive people. I just want to inspire people and I want to make a bunch of money, but I want the money to represent something that I passionately believe in, that I would do for free. Just show me a sign. Show me a sign. I'm just yelling.
Mm.
A week later, I'm at the gas station and a homeless guy asked me for money. I said, you have more money than me, because he had a wad of money. And he said, change your mindset, change your life, and walks the fuck away. I've heard a lot of personal development things in my life in quotes, but it was something about the energy that was behind the words that created a conscious interrupt for me and made me see my whole life flash. I've been lying to myself this whole time. Is it because of the way I've been thinking? So if I do different with the same circumstance, my life will change. Change your mindset, change your life. I started doing the opposite. Reading books was part of the opposite. Going to personal development seminars was part of the opposite. Stop chasing and trying to sleep with women every single night at the nightclubs, and then chasing a better version of myself inside of books and audiobooks was part of the opposite. Stop watching TV and like really immersing myself into learning more about myself. So my life became this evolution that was staged outside of the domestication of the habitual behavior that I grew up in, because we're habitual creatures by nature.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 12 years removed, but inside of those 12 years, I now know it's not necessary for me to go back. So I've designed my life. You create a game you actually like playing. There's people that's like, oh, I don't really like my job. Yeah, you chose to work there.
Yeah.
Specifically designed my life from 2011 up until the present moment in a way that works for my happiness,
Yeah.
for my joy. Well, not my happiness comes from me, but to amplify my happiness at whatever stage it was at. I always had a North Star. Here's where I'm going. Here's where I'm willing to give up. And here's what I'm committed to.
Yeah.
Now, by immersing myself in a community of people that were living in the direction of where I was going, flowers that grow together grow much faster than they do by themselves. Now, that was my 12-year journey up until when I met you. Now, I've ascended 10x since that time, and here's what happened. I've always known in the quiet of my mind that it wasn't truly fully me. I've always known. Anything that you've ever experienced from me, Blue, anybody else, I always knew it was my 4%. Because when I was a little kid, I saw Nelson Mandela and I saw Gandhi, and I remember saying, that's me, that's me. And I instantly shut it down because I said, those are the type of people who get assassinated. So I was afraid of my own bigness. So what I did is I unconsciously created a little game that if my 4% is better than most people around me, perfect place to hide. So as I close this story I had a conversation with my grandmother who passed away when I was in 2015. I often talk to my big mama,
Mhm.
talking to my ancestors.
Mhm.
And I said, why do I feel this block?
Yeah.
There's something there. They said, Garrain, you were never meant to be the most seen person in the world, and you've been trying to be seen. Garrain, you're meant to whisper great secrets in the most powerful leaders' ears. That, that is what you're meant to do. Look at your life. Look at who you draw to you. But you're trying to be seen in a way, in a world where you have to do nothing to be seen. You're not meant to be the most seen person in the world. You're meant to do this, whisper the great secrets, and they can't kill who they can't see, because now the one person becomes a body of leaders. However, those body of leaders need direction, and you operate in energy, you operate in frequency. And just like Christ died for all of our sins, Garrain, we chose you, our ancestors, we chose you to die for all of our sins. And that's why your life was so hard. So when you ascended with all of our powers.
Mm.
And I was like, fucking shit. This makes so much sense. Speaking with the trees, ancient language, ancestral. I mean, the range is ridiculous, but nobody taught me the range. It's always been there. And the more and more I grew, the
Yeah.
more and more I opened up, the range opened up.
Mhm.
Laying in bed with my wife, and this was the defining moment to this moment now.
Mhm.
Laying in bed with my wife, and I said, baby, I accept. She's like, what are you talking about? And I shared with her the story that I just shared with you. 2 minutes after I said I accept, I got a call from one of the most popular singers in the world who didn't have my number and said, I just watched you on a podcast. You just came into my field. I really admire your sacred teachings. If you're ever out in LA, I want to learn from you. 3 minutes later, I get a call. I get a message from Andre, our buddy Andre. It's like, hey, I'm putting together this mastermind with 8 and 9 figure earners, men's and everything. I feel like you should be a part of it. And I'm not an 8 and 9 figure earner yet, especially monetarily.
Mhm.
And I was like, huh, he wants me. He's like, so let me know when you're in LA. This was 5 minutes apart. Somebody else 2 minutes later, operating from the same frequency. Let me know when you're in LA. 3 minutes later, somebody else operating from the same frequency. Let me know when you're in LA. And this is why I love my wife, and I will remarry her 1,000 times. She said, baby, when are you getting your one-way ticket to LA?
Mhm.
And ever since then, my life in every area, in intimacy, in parenting, in business, and the way the ideas drop into me. And when I'm operating in my channel, my retreat that's coming up next week, Awaken the Artist Within, everything has exploded 10x.
Mhm.
And so that's what I have to say about that.
Wow. Wow. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Hmm. So inspiring. It's so beautiful to see you in your, like, what I would say is your shine, just fully in connection with your design, and when we are in connection with our design, there's no question about it. The question is taken out. And it feels to me like the question has been taken out. So it's an effortless experience when you're truly have died enough times to what you are not in order to become in full connection with your design. When we are in that place, life, the force of life will really bring in the synchronicities and the support to just lubricate the path, which is helpful. That's when you know you're connected to your design. Now, you said something earlier that I just want to touch on for anyone listening who is inspired as fuck, for everyone listening who's inspired as fuck right now. So for everyone listening that really feels like, man, I know that there's my own version of what Garrain's describing, right? Like it has to be, right? There has to be an expression of my design that is so clear that life lubricates the path in a way that I feel as excited and lit and on purpose as this man that I'm listening to right now. And what I find in a lot of clients that I've worked with is that there's a place when it comes to money, and you spoke to a shift where someone's working a job that they really don't want to be doing, and you said you chose to do that job, right? So for the individuals listening that are doing a job that they're choosing to do, but it doesn't feel like a choice, it feels like I have to. It feels like I have to, because if I don't, the fear of lack, the fear of being broke, the fear of ending up living in a car, the fear of not having resources, the like bottom Maslow's triangle level of supporting yourself. So for someone to break free on like a 3D level of like, man, like, but I have to do this thing that I don't want to do and go to this 9 to 5 or however you're generating resources, but it's actually draining energy. It's very, it's not connected to your design, but let's say it is, generating resources that could support that person in moving toward the design. Do you think it's healthy to have like a tapering off, or do you recommend like just a full click out of what the person is doing? Like, because there is an ownership. I liked what you said, and like, you're choosing this, and there is a like, oh, you're choosing this, and we're infinite, and there are many different potentialities that we can allow a person to generate resources. Even going and walking dogs because you love animals, and there's ways to generate that can support the ultimate goal and aim that is connected to your design. So if you have anything to speak to in that moment that's just like, pop out of that, how do I pop out of that and even get the momentum going?
One, tapering off is the worst thing that you can do. It shares a lot about your character. Tapering off in an intimate relationship, tapering off, and that is it's a mask of laziness and not willing to take responsibility.
And fear. There's fear in there too. Like, it's
This
being
is what I'm
careful.
saying.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to bring up. Instead of creating taper off, create a launching pad. In order to create a launching pad, you must first have a plan.
Mm.
And this is where in the spiritual community, it's like, man, there's a lot of spiritual people who are broke, and there's a lot of business people who are spiritually broken. And what I know and I've coach on, it's like, yo, you've got to get your systems and business and your structure in order. If you can't do it because your divine crystallishness and all this other stuff, find people that are smarter than you in that area. So what I'm going to share is, you had said something about fear of loss, fear of this. Take the of and anything after that out. It's just fear, period. Fear, period. And anybody who is domesticated in fear can be controlled by fear. Let's just pretend fear is like a little thing of oil inside of water. You don't pluck the oil. You keep pouring water in the cup and it will flush out. So putting faith and having faith and believing that, you know what, this is what I really want to do, and I'm going to create a plan to do it because you respect and honor and love yourself that much. You're going to create an exit strategy, and not just like, oh, I quit. I'm like, no taper off. No, just like this exit strategy.
Yeah.
2 people working at McDonald's. One of them just goes to pick up a check out of security and fear. This is like, oh, this provides me safety. The other one has a plan to one day open up a chain of restaurants. So every time that person goes to McDonald's, they're going to their vision environment. They got vision board, take the boards off, make the vision environment. They go to their vision environment. And all of a sudden, every time they're flipping the burgers, they was like, oh, I wouldn't do it like that. I would do it like this, taking notes on their plan.
Yeah.
I have a boss like this that treats me like this. I wouldn't treat people like this. I would treat people like this. Take notes connected to the plan.
Yeah.
So therefore, you have built an entire data of the company that you are now going to run. Instead of learning it while you're in the company, you learned it while you were in the other company because you had a plan and you weren't just relying on skill. You were talent. You were relying on skill.
Yeah.
Skill and talent are 2 different things. A bunch of talented people will only get you so far. Skill, when skill meets talent, those are the people that do the extraordinary. So I want to close with this, and this is very important, especially when it comes to money. There's a lot of people that just, How do you feel about nature? Oh my God, I love nature. How do you feel about trees? I love trees. What do you love about trees? Provides and it is consistent and it's like I just feel so safe around trees. Cool. How do you feel about money? Oh, I have money issues and da 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 da. The bark, the bark from a tree creates paper. That paper creates money. And whoever said money doesn't grow on trees, money is a tree. So if you treated the piece of paper with preconceived value like you actually treated the love and the openness and the understanding how it comes and goes and it's always going to be here, if you treated it with the same reverence, the same respect, the same love, the same current that is flowing through you, watch how you become a magnet the same way you're a magnet to nature. And while we're on the topic to nature, this is the human 2.0. This is the next phase of human. Mark my words. Mark my words. As we're coming into Earth 2.0, what do you think it's going to do to people? It's going to squeeze a lot of people out, but then another layer of a person is going to be birthed. That's the human 2.0. And what I feel, and this is feeling, this is not finite, this is feeling. What I feel is the person that is connected to the longest law that has ever graced the essence of life, which is nature's laws. They don't change. There's like car seats and all this stuff, that stuff changes. Like vax, no vax, all these laws, they change. Nature's laws always are present. They always preserve themselves. They always restore themselves. They always overflow. They're always fruitful. The person who collaborates with nature's laws becomes one with nature, and anybody that becomes one with nature benefits from nature's resources, which will long live any aspect of human 1.0 right now. So I want you to remember this name, harmonized human. That is one who is in harmony with nature as it was originally designed. Mm-hmm. Will be the next phase of human. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to leave you with some action steps. If you harbor resentment, hot air balloon can't leave the ground unless you release the weight. Don't care what anybody did. If you harbor any aspect of resentment, if you haven't forgiven somebody for whatever they did, you're already in a jail cell in human 2.1. You will not ascend.
Yeah.
Learning to love yourself to the overflow and allowing people to experience your overflow, not your exhaust, will allow you to ascend, and you will continue to evolve. And then taking that same love and spreading that love to humankind, and then doing the things that you used to love to do as a child because it connects you the closest to source. That's why they say all children go to heaven. So if you're closest to the child frequency, guess what? You unlock the power of co-creation. This is what I call artist power, which is the strength that's needed to harness the harmonized human.
Damn. So fucking powerful. You know, those are really important codes. And I think everything we covered on the episode leading in terms of the journey, the breakthrough points that you've walked are all, you know, you can compare and contrast your own life journey. It all contributes to becoming a harmonized human. The ability to learn how to let go of resentment and learn how to forgive. It comes through sitting with yourself and being patient and being willing to feel the feeling of rejection and all the lessons, all the teachings, everything that's happening right now in your life, whoever you are and wherever you're listening from, is a part of the training ground that is compelling your evolution towards harmonized human. So if there are people in your life that you have a hard time forgiving right now, that is the training right now, and you can collapse the opportunity into this moment right now. One of my greatest teachers, so grateful for him, he said, True forgiveness is realizing there was never anything to forgive.
Mm.
True forgiveness is realizing there was actually never anything to forgive, because this awareness and perspective we spoke of earlier, which is completely linked to what it means to be spiritually connected from my perspective, to have awareness, the awareness of your consciousness wrapped around the stories of your life, means that you have just enough space to see through the eyes of compassion anyone in your life the same way you've been able to see your own journey with compassion. How deeply, what you named around loving yourself is how deeply can you forgive yourself? How much compassion can you bring to yourself when you make a mistake, or when you perceive that you missed a mark or get put in prison? Like, how can you deeply forgive and bring compassion to yourself for the journey that you grew up in, for the storylines that you've been conditioned through? And as we shed these layers of conditioning, for you, some of the stories you named in the beginning of the episode around, we can't afford it, like, as we shed these layers of conditioning, we forgive ourselves for acting out of those protections that would have ever believed those stories. And so we have deep forgiveness for ourselves. So if we can see where our past conditioning and our stories that we told ourselves yielded certain identity structures and ways of being that were not our highest, and we learn how to forgive ourselves, then with time, we're going to be able to see that the same thing is happening in anyone in our lives. That if they've done us wrong, or they're in a distortion, or they're in a protection pattern, that individual, you can see there was never anything to forgive if you can have compassion for them and their story. Forgiveness does not mean that you don't have boundaries. If someone's attached to their protection, if someone's attached, if they're, crossing your boundaries, you can have a boundary and still hold compassion and free yourself through forgiveness and realizing, wow, this person is in a blinder. This person is in their unconsciousness. They're in their storyline from all the pains of all their past iterations and whatever is going on in their lineage that they're here to clear just as much as you have been. And there's something so deeply freeing about realizing that wherever you look in your life, if you bring that lens of compassion, truly, which is earned, the ability to do that is it's an embodiment. To embody true compassion yields forgiveness. And someone who's walking as the embodiment of forgiveness, it's like a slippery, like a duck, like things don't stick too much for too long, because it's just not worth carrying it in that way. And so I just appreciate the codes that you just brought and condensed, because it's the personal development work wrapped into 4 steps of what it means to truly walk in harmony with your design and with life. And I just feel so grateful that you brought your story and your journey and the way that you've arrived into your own expression of harmony on the planet at this time. And just to close out here, if you were to like speak to everyone listening, not from where you're sitting today, but if you really tune into your leading edge and the version of you that is being birthed through you today, right now. So the version of you that's coming online today, through this version of you today, that you're working to embody, that you're leading your life into. If that version of you, let's say 6 months from now, was going to speak into the past now moment, what would that version of you say?
He would have no words, because words separate from the original language of sound, vibration, and frequency. Inside of his being would be entire universe that emanates permission globally for people to say, I choose me fully.
Mm.
I honor me fully, all of it, even the ugly parts. The ugly parts are actually beautiful because it's all art. It wouldn't be words, it would be an energy that is so the vibrationally sound that even if you wanted to block it, you couldn't.
Mm. Yeah.
You couldn't block it because what comes from the heart goes into the heart. And so that version of me that is, and I'm speaking into the future, that is masterful in vocal harmonics, that is masterful in the language of resonant frequency, is masterful in the language of vibration, and that oscillates from the non-physical world and the physical world and harmonizes those two worlds together to create another world.
Mm.
I don't want him to say anything to me. I want to say to him, Garrain, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Listening.
Mm-hmm. So beautiful.
I'm coming.
Uh-huh. I believe it, and I already feel it. Thank you so much for bringing your medicine, your voice, your truth, your rawness,
Mm.
yeah, to this space today. And if anyone would like to find you and go deeper, where can they, and what do you have coming up right now to receive some new energy in your life?
Well,
Uh-huh.
I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but I literally have 4 spots left at my retreat. It's called Awaken the Artist Within. The artist is the little kid inside of you before life stripped away all your powers. The container knows how to safely walk you back into that energy that unlocks that power. This is what we've been talking about the whole time. I have 4 spots left. Blue is one of the co-facilitators. Sorrel is going to be there. There's a lot of people going to be there. There's going to be 70 people. Room and stay is taken care of. And it is an activation for activators and students alike. It is drawing some really powerful people to the space. So that is the lowest hanging fruit right now. Other than that, there's my book, Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life online. And yeah, we have really cool things coming up. Just maybe there might be a mastermind called Harmonized Humans Mastermind coming up in a few months.
Mm.
So, having said that, I can't wait to meet each and every one of you. You want to play at the next level? Like my samurai teacher taught me, you know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Highly, highly recommend reaching out to this man. And for all of you listening, thank you as always for the depth of your receiving. It is so, so, so felt. And I look forward to seeing you next time.